After being robbed twice, he decided to pretend he was blind, to test the new housekeeper, without imagining that she was also hiding something from him, something she believed he would never find out. But when he saw her arrive at work with a girl, he discovered her secret. What he didn't expect was that the little girl would also discover one of his, and in that game where everyone was pretending, the only one who really knew how to play was barely 5 years old. It was Nathan Calloway was 42 years old, a sprawling estate in the hills outside Maplewood, Connecticut, and one simple rule he lived by: never trust anyone who hadn't earned it first. It wasn't a rule he'd chosen out of stubbornness. Life had written it into him, one betrayal at a time. The first time a housekeeper robbed him, she disappeared with $4,000 in cash and his grandfather's pocket watch. That watch had passed through 3 generations of Calloway men. His grandfather had given it to his father on his wedding day. His father had pressed it into Nathan's palm the afternoon before he left for college, with words Nathan still remembered. "Things don't matter for what they cost, son. They matter for what they've lived through." That watch had lived through a lot, and it was gone by a Tuesday afternoon while Nathan sat in a board meeting across town. The second time was worse. That housekeeper had stayed 11 months. 11 months of showing up early, staying late, remembering how he took his coffee, learning the rhythms of the house until she moved through it like she'd always lived there. When she disappeared, Nathan didn't notice for 3 days. She hadn't taken objects this time. She'd photographed his financial documents, copied his account numbers, and sold the information. His bank flagged 4 fraudulent wire transfers before any of them cleared, but some things a bank cannot give back. 2 times. 2 betrayals, and both times he hadn't seen a single thing coming. So when the time came to hire a third housekeeper, Nathan made a decision that anyone reasonable would have called insane. He was going to pretend to be blind, completely. Dark aviator glasses that revealed nothing of his eyes, a white aluminum cane with a rubber tip. Weeks of practicing in front of the bathroom mirror, how to turn his face towards sounds instead of sources, how to reach for surfaces he already knew by heart, how to walk through his own home like a stranger learning it for the first time. It was a full acting job, and no one knew. Not his assistant Derek, not his doctor, not his sister Ellen, who lived in Portland and called on birthdays and holidays and not much else. Nobody. The story he'd prepared was clean and believable. A car accident 14 months ago on I-95 in a January storm. Total loss of vision. A long, grinding process of learning to live differently. He needed domestic help he could trust completely. The trap was set. All it needed was someone to walk into it. Found to Claire, not his sister, a different Claire entirely. Claire Merritt was 31 years old, had a daughter named Lily who was 5, and exactly 6 days before her landlord changed the locks on her apartment. 6 days. $1,800 she didn't have. She'd been job hunting for 2 months. 2 months of submitting applications from a phone with a cracked screen she couldn't afford to fix. 2 months of borrowing her neighbor's iron to press the same blazer before every interview. 2 months of smiling like everything was manageable while the ground kept shifting under her feet. Lily didn't know any of it. Claire had made sure of that. Her daughter saw a mom who was steady, calm, always in control of whatever was happening. A mom who read bedtime stories with funny voices and made Saturday morning pancakes shaped like animals and never let her chin tremble in front of a 5-year-old. Even when it did, the moment Lily looked away. When Claire saw the listing on a neighborhood app on a Wednesday evening, she almost scrolled past it. The pay was generous enough to seem like a typo. Private estate, structured hours, Sundays off. The employer had recently lost his sight in an accident and required a trustworthy, discreet individual for household management and daily support. She called the contact number that same night. The initial screening was a phone call with an assistant named Derek, who asked questions in the flat, efficient tone of someone reading from a checklist. Claire answered everything clearly. At the end, Derek told her that Mr. Calloway would like to meet her in person before making any decision. The following Monday, she drove out to Maplewood. The estate was everything the listing suggested and more. A long gravel driveway lined with old oaks, a main house with white trim, and a wide front porch that had clearly been there for decades. Every detail maintained to a standard that said money without announcing it. Claire sat in her car for a moment before getting out. She straightened her blazer, checked her reflection in the visor mirror, told herself what she always told herself before things that mattered. Just be exactly who you are. She rang the bell. The man who opened the door was not what she'd pictured. Tall, sandy brown hair going silver at the temples, in a way that suited him, a jaw that was set without being harsh, dark glasses that covered his eyes entirely, paired with a pale blue button-down that somehow looked effortless. He held a white cane in his left hand, while his right extended toward where the sound of the bell had come from. "Miss Merritt?" "Yes, that's me." His voice was measured, direct. No warmth on the surface, but nothing cold underneath it either. "Come in, walk straight ahead about 10 feet, then turn left." Claire followed the instructions. The inside of the house was something she hadn't expected. Ceilings high enough to make the rooms breathe, walls painted a warm off-white, furniture that was solid and serious and chosen to last. The stillness had weight to it, like a house that had been holding something back for a long time. The interview was efficient. "I need someone organized, punctual and honest," Nathan said, his face angled just slightly toward where he'd heard her sit. "My previous experiences have made it clear that those three qualities don't always come together in one person." Claire said nothing and let him continue. "The role covers general household management, meal preparation, and assistance with mobility and daily routines as needed. I don't have guests. I don't allow anyone other than the hired help on this property. That's not a preference, it's a requirement. Are we clear?" "Completely." "Good." A pause. "Any questions before we wrap up?" Claire took a breath, and then asked the one thing she probably shouldn't have asked. "Actually, yes. I apologize in advance. It's just that we're coming up on summer break, and my daughter is 5, and I was wondering if there was any flexibility around—" "You have a daughter?" "Yes, she's 5. I know you said no guests, but I thought maybe on certain days—" "No." The word landed flat and final. "No one other than you enters this property. That includes children. If that's something you can't accommodate, I understand, but this position isn't negotiable on that point." Claire felt the panic move up through her chest, like cold water rising. She had no one to leave Lily with. Her mother was in Phoenix and in poor health. She had no siblings nearby. The friends she'd had before her marriage fell apart, had slowly drifted into their own lives, and she hadn't had the energy to pull them back. The woman downstairs who used to watch Lily in emergencies had moved out in April. There was no one. "That won't be an issue," Claire said, with a steadiness in her voice that she manufactured entirely in that moment. "My daughter will be with her grandmother for the summer." Nathan nodded once. "You start Wednesday." Tuesday night, Claire didn't sleep. Lily was curled beside her in the bed, one arm thrown over her head the way she always slept, completely peaceful, completely unaware. Claire watched her in the dark and thought about what she was about to do. Because she had decided to bring her, there was no other answer. She'd tried to think of one for 3 days and come up empty every time. At 5:30 Wednesday morning, she dressed Lily quietly while her daughter was still half asleep. The yellow sundress with the white buttons, the sneakers with the Velcro straps that Lily could do herself and was very proud of. Hair in 2 braids that took longer than they should have, because Lily kept turning her head to look at things. When they were both ready, Claire sat on the edge of the bed and pulled Lily to face her. "Okay, Bug, I need to tell you about a very special game we're going to play today." Lily, rubbing her eyes, nodded. "We're going to a house where Mommy has to work. It's a big, quiet house, and while I work, you and I are going to play the silence game." "The silence game?" "Mm-hmm. It's very hard. Only really smart, really focused kids can play it." Claire held her daughter's face gently in both hands. "You have to be as quiet as a little mouse the whole time we're there. No running, no loud talking, only whispers if you absolutely need something. If you can do that the whole time, you win." Lily sat up straighter. The sleepiness evaporated. "I'm good at being quiet," she said, with great certainty. "I know you are. That's why I'm asking you and not some other kid. What do I win?" Claire thought fast. "You pick anything you want to do this weekend. Anything." Lily extended her hand with the gravity of someone signing a contract. "Deal." Claire shook it. "Deal." And she tried very hard not to think about what would happen if they were caught. Nathan heard the front door open at precisely 8 o'clock Wednesday morning. Good. He sat at his desk with the dark glasses on and the cane propped against the bookcase behind him, and he listened. Firm, even footsteps in the entryway. Then the careful, deliberate sound of a large bag being set down on the hall floor. Not dropped, placed. Then the soft click of the front door closing. Then nothing. Then, half a breath after nothing, something else. A small, controlled exhale. The kind children make when they are working very hard at being invisible. Nathan didn't move. "Ms. Merritt?" "Good morning, Mr. Calloway, right on time." "I can hear that." A deliberate pause. Did you come alone? Yes, just me. He tilted his head slightly, as though following something in the air. That's interesting. I've developed fairly acute hearing since the accident. There's a second breathing pattern in here, smaller than yours. The pause that followed lasted long enough to be its own kind of answer. Oh, that's me, I'm sorry. I walked fast from the parking area, and I'm still a little winded. I breathe kind of unevenly when I've been rushing. Nathan let it go. Understood. He stood, reaching for the cane. Let me walk you through the house. And while he guided her from room to room with the measured steps of a man relearning his own home, his eyes went exactly where he intended them to go. The large canvas tote she'd left by the hall table, the slight give in the fabric that meant it wasn't empty. A small water bottle with cartoon characters printed on the side visible in the front pocket. A stuffed rabbit, grey and well-loved, tied to the handle with a ribbon, and something else coming from that bag. A stillness that was working too hard. The particular hush of someone concentrating with everything they had on not existing. The third day, Nathan was walking to the kitchen when he stopped in the hallway. From the back bedroom came a quiet, steady sound. A crayon moving across paper. He knew that sound, the specific drag and texture of wax on cardstock, different from pencil, different from marker. This was crayon. He stood in the hallway for 20 seconds. He could have opened the door. He had every reason to. He didn't. He walked back to the study instead. When Derek called that afternoon, Nathan picked up and said very little. Derek asked if everything was all right. Nathan said it was. It wasn't entirely true. It was Wednesday of the first week. Nathan was in the sitting room listening to a business call on speaker when he heard small footsteps crossing the hallway toward the kitchen. Not Claire's footsteps. These were lighter, deliberate in a different way. The careful heel-to-toe steps of a child trying very hard to move silently. He tracked them with his eyes without moving his head. Then he heard something that changed the air in the room entirely. Claire's footsteps coming quickly down the stairs. The child heard them too. She stopped in the middle of the hallway. She looked toward the stairs. She looked toward the back bedroom. Too far. She wasn't going to make it. Nathan processed the situation in less than a second. Ms. Merritt. His voice came out calm and clear, interrupting her footsteps on the stairs. Yes, Mr. Calloway, she called down. The Morrison file I was reviewing yesterday, it's on the desk in the study. Blue folder, could you grab it for me? A pause. The one in the left-hand drawer? That's it. Take your time. There are a lot of pages. Her footsteps changed direction, went back toward the study. In the hallway, the child had gone completely still. Nathan turned his head very slowly toward where she was standing. With one finger, he pointed toward the back bedroom. Go. The girl didn't need to be told twice. She crossed the hallway in 4 steps that made almost no sound and disappeared. Nathan settled back in his chair. 20 seconds later, Claire came down the stairs with the folder. Here you go, Mr. Calloway. Thank you. Leave it on the side table. Is there anything else you need? No. You can carry on. Her footsteps moved away, and from the back hallway came 2 small, soft knocks against the wall, the child's signal for received. Nathan turned his face slightly away so Claire wouldn't see, on the remote chance she looked back. He was smiling. Thursday was the day everything shifted, though no one planned it that way. Nathan was at his desk signing documents when he heard Claire's footsteps in the hall. The study door opened. Sorry to interrupt. Coffee's here and lunch will be ready in about 20 minutes. Chicken and rice. Good. Left side of the desk, please. She set the mug down carefully, always exactly where he'd been able to reach it before she understood that he could reach things just fine, and was turning to leave when a sound from the hallway stopped everything. A cough. Small, dry, unmistakably a child's. Nathan raised his head. Claire's face, when he looked at it, was the face of someone watching the floor disappear beneath their feet, and then, before he could say anything, she started coughing, loudly, persistently, with the full conviction of someone who has decided that volume is a strategy, a performance of a cough that filled the study for a solid 10 seconds. Sorry about that. Dry air in here really gets my throat. I should drink more water. You should, Nathan said. Try a glass every hour. Great idea. Will do. And she walked out with steps that were measured and deliberate and revealed nothing. Nathan waited. He counted to 15. Then he looked toward the hallway doorway, and there she was. A girl, maybe 5 years old, hair in 2 dark braids, one neater than the other, big brown eyes wide with the specific expression of someone who has just realized they may have made a mistake. A crayon, green, clutched in her right hand. She didn't move. He didn't either. 1 second, 2, 3, and then Nathan did something that wasn't in any version of the plan he'd made. He smiled. The girl's eyes went wider. He raised one finger slowly to his lips. Shh, and winked. She blinked once, twice, and then she was gone from the doorway, silent as a held breath, leaving no trace that she'd been there at all. Nathan pressed his fist briefly against his mouth. It was the only way to keep from laughing out loud, alone in his study, at nothing in particular. Lily sat on the braided rug in the back bedroom and held her stuffed rabbit against her chest and thought very hard about what had just happened. The man wasn't blind. He had seen her, smiled at her, winked at her, the same way Grandma winked when they had a secret together, and then he'd put his finger to his lips. That was a contract. Lily understood contracts. A deal was a deal. You kept yours because the other person was keeping theirs. He wasn't going to tell, which meant she wasn't going to tell either. She pulled out a fresh sheet of paper from her backpack and picked up the green crayon. The game had new rules now, and she was good at games. The second week, Nathan started moving through the house differently. Before, he'd stayed close to the study. Controlled routes, predictable timing, the performance of a man who'd memorized a smaller and smaller world. It served the act. But now he found reasons to move through other rooms, always with the cane, always with the glasses, always in character. His eyes, though, went their own direction. The first time was a Monday afternoon, when he came into the living room and found Lily sitting cross-legged on the floor, with her crayons arranged in a careful arc around her, working on something with the focused seriousness of a surgeon. She looked up when she heard him come in, didn't move, didn't make a sound. They looked at each other. Nathan went to the armchair and sat down. Lily watched him for a moment, evaluating. Then she stood up, walked to him, and placed a folded piece of paper on his knee. He opened it. A drawing. A tall man with dark glasses and a white cane. Next to him, a small girl with 2 braids and a backpack. Below, in large uneven letters that pressed hard enough into the paper to leave marks on the back, the game. Nathan folded it carefully and put it in the inside pocket of his jacket. He nodded once, slowly, officially. Lily's smile was so large, it seemed to surprise even her. She went back to the floor and kept drawing. That was the first of many. Tuesday of the second week brought something Nathan hadn't accounted for. Claire needed to replace a light bulb in the upstairs hallway. The ceilings were high, original to the house, over 10 feet, and the small step stool she'd found in the utility closet wasn't quite enough. "Mr. Calloway, do you know where the extra bulbs are kept?" "Hall closet, second shelf. Thank you." He heard her find the closet, heard the step stool scrape across the wood floor, and then heard nothing for a moment. "Would you mind coming out here for a second?" He took the cane and went to the hallway. "What is it?" "The step stool wobbles a little when I get up on it and the ceiling's high. Would you be able to hold it steady while I change it? I don't want it sliding." "Of course." He reached out and found the sides of the step stool with both hands, braced it. "You're good," he said. Claire climbed up, and while she worked above him, arms extended, head tilted up, hands moving with the practiced ease of someone used to figuring things out, Nathan watched her, not as surveillance, not as strategy. He just watched. The way she didn't rush, the efficiency in her hands, the small sound she made when the old bulb finally gave way, half satisfaction, half relief. There was something about seeing her like this, in the unguarded version of herself that existed only when she thought no one could see. "Almost got it," she said. The stool shifted right. Claire came down a step fast, reaching for balance, and her hand landed on his shoulder. They stayed like that, her hand on his shoulder, his hands on the stool, neither of them far enough apart to be comfortable. The hallway was very quiet. "Sorry," Claire said. "Lost my footing. Don't apologize." "You okay?" Yes, I'm fine." She climbed back up, finished the job, and came down carefully. Nathan released the stool. When he stepped back, his hands brushed hers as she reached to fold the stool up. Half a second of contact. Less. They both felt it the same way. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was slightly different from usual. Lower, more careful. "Any time," he said. He walked back to the study with the cane. He didn't open a single document for the rest of the afternoon. It wasn't because his shoulder hurt from holding the stool. It was the opposite of that. The morning coffees started almost by accident. One Thursday, Nathan came out of the study earlier than usual and found Claire at the kitchen counter with her own coffee, getting ready to start the day. She stepped aside immediately. "Sorry, I'll get out of your way." "You don't have to. Is there more?" "Yes, of course. Let me get you a cup. Sit down." Nathan said. "Sit down and drink yours." And so it began. They sat at the kitchen table by the window that looked out over the back property. He had his coffee black. She had hers with a splash of milk and 1 sugar, which she measured out the same way every time. They talked about small things at first. The week's grocery list, a repair the back porch railing needed, whether the weather was turning, then larger things, slowly. She told him about the design program she'd enrolled in at 22 and left at 24 when the money ran out and the circumstances changed. He asked what she'd liked about it. She thought before she answered, in a way that told him she wasn't performing the answer. "The problem-solving part," she said. "Every project is a problem you haven't seen before. You can't just repeat what worked last time. Do you miss it?" "I miss the feeling of finishing something. When it all comes together and it's something that didn't exist before." A pause. "I haven't felt that in a while." Nathan said nothing. He was watching her face, which she didn't know. "What about you?" she asked. "Did you always know what you wanted to do?" "More or less." He turned his coffee cup slowly on the table. "I knew what I was good at, which isn't quite the same thing." "What's the difference?" "Being good at something gives you a direction. Wanting it gives you a reason to keep going when the direction gets hard." She looked at him across the table. He was facing slightly away, toward the window, which he always did, but she had the strangest feeling he was watching her. One morning, while Claire was talking about Lily with the particular softness that came into her voice whenever her daughter came up, Nathan saw, over Claire's shoulder, a small face appear in the kitchen doorway. Lily, rabbit under one arm, looking like she'd come for a glass of water and found something more interesting instead. Nathan didn't blink. Under the table, 2 fingers, pressed down. "Go back." Lily read it instantly. She was gone. "Mr. Calloway," said Claire. "Sorry." He looked back toward her. "You were saying." "I was saying Lily's been asking me a lot of questions lately about how things work. Engines, electricity, why the sky is blue. Everything's a question. That's a good sign. Exhausting, but yes." She smiled into her cup. "She sounds like someone who doesn't want to just be handed the answer." "No, she never has." A pause. "Drives me crazy sometimes, but I'd be worried if she stopped." Nathan nodded, and from the hallway, 2 soft knocks on the baseboard. He kept his face completely neutral. The 4th week, Nathan had a video call with a group of investors in Boston. He put on a charcoal blazer over his shirt and was reviewing his talking points when Claire came in with his coffee and stopped. "Mr. Calloway, your collar is folded under on the right side. It looks a little off for a meeting." "Is it?" "The right side. The tip is tucked under the jacket." He reached up and searched for it, patting the wrong area twice. "I can't quite find it." A brief pause. "May I?" she asked. "Please." She set the tray down and stepped toward him. Her fingers found the collar quickly and fixed it, folded it out, smoothed it flat, adjusted the edge of the jacket so it sat correctly. Small, precise movements. Efficient. Nathan sat very still. Her face was close enough that he could hear the quiet steadiness of her breathing, feel the slight warmth that came with proximity. Her hands were near his jaw without touching it. He closed his eyes. Just for a second. Just long enough to make a decision about what to do with what he was feeling, and then to set it aside for later. He opened them. "There," Claire said, stepping back to check her work. "That's better. You look professional. Thank you. Good luck with the call." She picked up the tray and left. The call started in 8 minutes. It took Nathan 6 of them to stop thinking about the angle of her hands near his face. The 5th week arrived grey and drizzly, a proper New England spring morning. Claire came in 4 minutes late, slightly damp, a little flustered. She settled Lily in the back room and came to the kitchen a few minutes after. "Sorry." The parkway was backed up. 4 minutes, Nathan said, not looking up from the papers on the table. "In a rainstorm. I'll survive." Claire laughed, short and genuine, before she could think about weather too. They had their coffee at the window while rain ran down the glass. The conversation found its way to something deeper than usual, the way conversations do on rainy mornings, when there's nothing to rush toward. "Are you afraid of anything?" Nathan asked. Claire wrapped both hands around her mug and looked at the window for a moment before she answered. "Working as hard as I can for someone," she said, "and finding out they had already decided not to trust me before I ever walked in the door. That everything I did was already being measured against a verdict that was made before I opened my mouth." Neither of them spoke for longer than usual. Nathan said nothing. Claire glanced at him. "What about you?" He turned his coffee cup slowly on the table. "The same thing," he said. "Exactly the same thing." The rain kept going. Neither of them spoke for a while after that. And in the hallway, Lily had her ear to the wall and a small, satisfied expression on her face that she couldn't quite explain, but she understood enough. That same week, Thursday, Claire tripped. She was carrying the lunch tray down the hallway, and her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. A message from her landlord, the third that week, and her foot caught the edge of the hall runner. The tray went. The sound was enormous in the house. Claire stood in the middle of the mess with her hands still out in front of her, eyes closed, bracing for the sound of Nathan's cane and his voice asking what happened. What she heard was different. Fast footsteps. The cane striking the floor quickly. "Are you hurt? Did you cut yourself?" "I'm fine. It was just me being clumsy." Are you sure? No glass?" "I'm sure. I'm completely fine. Tell me where the pieces are." She described them, and he came toward her, following her words, checking the floor with the cane before each step. When he reached her, he crouched and began picking up shards with a careful precision that she couldn't quite account for. They cleaned it up together. When they both stood at the same time, they were closer than they should have been. The dark glasses pointed directly at her, and Claire had the feeling she'd been having more and more frequently in recent weeks. Stronger now, standing this close. The feeling that he could see her, that he'd been seeing her the whole time. "Thank you," she said softly. "Of course," he said. Neither of them moved for a moment that stretched. The week after, Nathan asked Claire to read through a contract. "The audio version has a glitch," he said, which was not true. "Could you go through sections 3 and 4 and read them to me out loud?" She sat across from him at the desk and read. She had a different voice for reading than for talking. Slower, more careful with each word, like she was making sure she understood something before passing it on. Nathan listened, or appeared to. What he actually did was watch her in the version of herself that existed only when she thought no one was looking. The way she held the pages, slightly angled like she'd learned to read with imperfect lighting, the way she moved her lips very slightly on the longer words, the small vertical line that appeared between her eyebrows when something in the language struck her as odd. She finished and looked up. He was angled toward her with an attention that felt somehow more concentrated than just listening. "Clear enough?" she asked. "A half-second longer than necessary." "Very," he said. She set the pages on the edge of the desk. As she did, her fingers crossed his. He'd been reaching for the papers at the same moment, from memory, from the angle he'd calculated she would leave them. A half-second of contact. She pulled her hand back. He didn't. He left his hand there on the edge of the desk, exactly where hers had been, for 2 full seconds. Then he withdrew it. "Thank you," he said. "Any time," she said. She walked out of the study. And in the hallway, 3 steps from the door, she stopped. She put her back against the wall, closed her eyes, stood there until she remembered why she'd gone into the study to begin with. She couldn't. That evening, Nathan opened the desk drawer. 21 drawings. He went through them one by one under the lamp. The first one, the game. The ones in the middle. The house, the kitchen table with 2 chairs, the 5-star rating with a note below it that said, "This is your score." The drawing of a tall man holding a step stool steady, while a woman with her hair up reached toward a ceiling light. He smiled at that one longer than the others. The last drawing was the one she'd slipped onto the hall table that afternoon, without Claire seeing. 2 figures at a window, rain outside, a crooked arrow drawn between them, pointing both ways. No Lily in this one, just the 2 of them. Nathan looked at it for a long time. He closed the drawer. Anne sat in the dim study with the desk lamp on and his dark glasses on the blotter in front of him. He looked at them. He'd worn them every day for weeks. They'd been the whole architecture of the plan, the blindness, the cane, the careful performance of helplessness. They'd let him watch without being watched, judge without being judged, stay safely on the other side of a one-way mirror he'd constructed for himself. But it had been at least 2 weeks since they were any of those things. For 2 weeks they had been something else, the only thing standing between him and telling her the truth. The question wasn't whether he felt something. That question had answered itself. The question was what kind of person he wanted to be when he finally took them off. Monday of the 6th week, Nathan came out before breakfast. Claire was at the kitchen counter with her back to the door, coffee going, pulling out the pan for eggs. She'd done her hair differently. A quick braid that sat off to one side, the kind you make without a mirror when you're running on less sleep than you should be. She hadn't heard him come in yet. She was humming something. Low, almost nothing. A habit she seemed to have when she thought she was alone. He'd heard it before, always this same melody, no words he could identify. Then she turned and found him in the doorway. "Oh, good morning. I didn't hear you." "Good morning." She reached up to fix the braid by reflex, even though she thought he couldn't see it. "Eggs this morning?" "Yes." A pause. Something's different today. She frowned slightly. Different how? In the house. The air, maybe. I'm not sure. She studied him. Everything's the same, but it wasn't, and they both knew it. Wednesday morning, Nathan was on a call with Derek when it happened. He was standing at the study window, phone to his ear, half listening to a quarterly summary that didn't need his full attention, when he heard it. A soft scrape along the bottom of the study door, the sound of paper sliding across hardwood. He looked down. A folded sheet had appeared under the door and stopped just inside the room. Derek was still talking. "Nathan, you still there?" "Yes. Go ahead." He walked to the door, picked up the sheet without making a sound and unfolded it with one hand. A drawing, crayon, green and yellow, and a determined amount of orange. A man sitting at a desk, a woman visible through the doorway behind him, carrying something. Between them, Lily had drawn a large red arrow pointing from the man to the woman, and below it, in her biggest letters yet, "The game is taking too long, but I am going to win." Nathan stood in the middle of the study holding the drawing. Derek was explaining something about Q3 projections. "Derek, I'll call you back." He hung up, looked at the drawing for another moment, then looked toward the door. From somewhere down the hallway came the sound of small footsteps retreating very quickly, followed by the soft click of the back bedroom door closing. Nathan folded the drawing, put it in his jacket pocket, and stood there for a full minute before going back to his desk. Thursday afternoon. Claire was reorganizing the bookshelves in the study, one section at a time, working from bottom to top. Nathan was at the desk, or pretending to be. She reached the top row and came up short. "Mr. Calloway, could you help me with something? There's one book up top I can't reach and I don't want to drag in the step stool for just one. Tell me where you are." Right side of the shelves, standing about 2 feet out. He came around the desk. "I'm here," she said. She took his hand and guided it toward the shelf, toward the right, upward, her fingers over his, moving slowly, with the careful attention of someone leading someone else through something unfamiliar. "There," she said. "The blue one, cloth cover, little worn on the spine." His fingers found the book and stopped. She hadn't moved her hand. 5 seconds, maybe more. Neither of them spoke. "Got it," he said. His voice was quieter than usual. "Yes," she said. Her hand stayed another moment. Then she lifted it away. He brought the book down and held it out. She took it. They stood there close to the shelves, in a stillness that had weight and texture and no particular desire to end. "Thank you," Claire said finally. "Thank you," Nathan said. She went back to organizing. He went back to the desk. Neither of them was quite back to where they'd been before. Friday morning, Lily left a new drawing on the hallway console table before Claire could see it. 2 hands, fingers intertwined. Above them, in her large pressed letters, "They're going to figure it out." Nathan found it on his way past. He read it. He looked toward the back hallway. From behind the closed door came one small knock on the baseboard. He shook his head slowly, a smile he couldn't prevent. A 5-year-old was applying pressure, and she wasn't wrong. It happened first on Thursday evening, right before Claire was about to leave. She had come to the study door to let him know she was heading out. Nathan was at his desk, the cane propped against the bookcase, glasses on. "Lily left her rabbit," Claire said from the doorway. "I found it on the armchair. She'll be upset without it tonight." She came in to retrieve it and passed close behind his chair. Nathan didn't move, but he turned his head slightly toward the sound of her, and she stopped. For no reason she could have explained, she stopped. Standing behind his chair with the rabbit in her hand, 3 feet between them and no reason to close that distance, she just stopped and didn't move for 2 full seconds. Nathan still didn't turn around. "Good night, Miss Merritt," he said. "Good night." She left. She sat in her car in the driveway for a moment before starting the engine. She didn't know what had just happened. She just knew that something had. Friday afternoon. Nathan was standing at the living room window with his back to the room when Claire came in to collect the coffee things. She moved through the room the way she always did when he was there, carefully, without announcing herself. Set the cups on the tray, was about to go. "Miss Merritt." She turned. He was still facing the window. His voice was different from his usual measured tone. "I owe you an honest conversation." She set the tray back down. "About what?" He turned from the window. "About the fact that this stopped feeling like a normal work arrangement some time ago, and I don't think I'm the only one who knows that." She didn't answer. He wasn't asking her to. "Mr. Calloway." "Nathan." She went very still. "Nathan," he said again, lower. "There's too much distance in Mr. Calloway for what I'm trying to say." Claire noticed she was gripping the edge of the tray. She let go of it. "What are you trying to say?" He crossed the room. Not fast. Just steadily, the way a person moves when they've finally made a decision. He raised his hand and found her face, and he kissed her. Soft, unhurried, for exactly the length of time that something feels true. Claire didn't pull back right away. When she did, it was slowly. Her eyes were open. Something in her face wanted to say yes, and didn't know how. "I can't." Her voice dropped. "You're my employer, and I don't know what just happened, but I'm not someone who—" "You're right." She looked at him. "You're completely right," he said. "And the apology belongs to me." A pause. "But not for the reason you think." She frowned. "I don't understand." Nathan raised both hands to his face and took off the dark glasses. His eyes came into the light of the room for the first time since any of this had started. Grey-green, clear, fully functional, eyes that could see, eyes that had seen everything. Claire didn't speak. She couldn't. "I'm not blind," he said. What followed had physical weight. "I never was. You—" Her voice came out thin. "This whole time. The whole time." She blinked. Once, twice, 3 times. The way you blink when your brain needs a moment that your eyes can't provide. "You were watching me." "Yes. From the beginning. From the interview." She set the cups down on the side table, carefully, like she needed her hands free for whatever came next. "I was robbed twice," Nathan said. "The first housekeeper took cash and something I can't replace. The second one copied my financial records and tried to wire money out of my accounts." He paused. "I decided that the third time I was going to be the one who could see it coming." "And you didn't find anything," Claire said. "It wasn't a question. Nothing, not a dollar, not a paper out of place. You never touched anything that wasn't yours. Not once." She closed her eyes. "Lily," she said, "from the first day." Her voice broke slightly at the edges. "I'm sorry, I had no one to leave her with. The rent was late and I know. It wasn't irresponsible. It was just that there was no—" "Claire." She stopped. The first time he'd said just her name since this started, with nothing in front of it, landed differently now that she could see his eyes when he said it. "I know," he said again. "I saw where you live. I saw how hard you work so that Lily doesn't go without. I watched someone with every reason to cut corners choose not to. Every single time." Her eyes were bright. "I lied to you too," he said. "From the first second I opened that door. I have no standing to ask you to account for anything." He paused. "And I have no standing to kiss someone who doesn't know who I actually am." She looked at him for a long moment. "Who are you, actually?" He set the glasses down on the table beside her cups. "Someone who has spent 6 weeks watching you and hasn't been able to look at anything else since." What followed was different from every other moment in that house. Not heavy, not uncomfortable, the kind of stillness that settles in right before something changes permanently. And then came the small footsteps, the footsteps of someone who had been listening from the hallway for a while and had decided the moment called for her presence. Lily appeared in the living room doorway, crayons in one hand, a folded paper under her arm. She looked at her mother. She looked at Nathan. She looked at both of them, back and forth, with eyes that were taking in more than her 5 years should have allowed. And then she looked directly at Nathan and asked with complete seriousness, "So who won the game?" Claire opened her mouth. Nothing came out. She turned to Nathan with wide eyes. She knew. Nathan dipped his head slightly. "Since the coughing incident." Claire put her hand over her mouth, then turned to her daughter. "Lily, you knew he could see the whole time and you didn't say anything to me?" Lily considered this, then lifted her shoulders in the calm, reasonable way of someone who doesn't understand why this is complicated. "He winked at me, Mommy, and he did this." She repeated the gesture slowly, one finger to her lips. "That means it's a secret between 2 people, and a secret between 2 people you don't tell to a third person. Everyone knows that." Claire didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Her body chose both. Nathan crouched down to Lily's level. "Both of you won," he said. "By a lot." Lily processed this with appropriate gravity, nodded once. "What's the prize?" He thought about it, then looked up at Claire, then back at Lily. "What if you and your mom stayed for dinner tonight?" Lily looked at her mom. Claire looked at Nathan. Nathan looked at Claire. And Lily, who was 5 years old and understood the important things with a clarity that left adults behind, took the folded paper from under her arm and held it out to him with both hands. He unfolded it, a large sheet, full of color from edge to edge. A yellow sun in one corner, flowers along the bottom in red and purple. In the center, 3 figures standing together, holding hands, a tall one, a medium one, a small one with 2 braids. And below them, in the most careful letters Lily had ever written, "Our new family." Claire couldn't hold it back. Nathan looked at the two of them, at Lily, certain and hopeful in the way that only children who have decided something can be, at Claire, eyes bright, one hand pressed over her mouth, and he understood, with a certainty he hadn't felt in years, that the trap he had built so carefully to catch someone in had caught him instead, completely. And standing there with that drawing in his hands, something in his chest that he'd kept very carefully locked for a very long time came open. It was, without any question at all, the best thing that had ever caught him. That evening they ate together at the big dining room table that Claire had polished every week since she'd started. Lily taught Nathan the names she had given all her crayons. The blue one was Serious Sky, the red one was Brave Tomato, the yellow one was Good Morning Sun, the dark green was Tree with Secrets, the orange was Hurrying Sunrise. Nathan repeated each name back. Lily corrected him twice before she was satisfied. When she fell asleep on the living room couch, with the rabbit tucked under her chin and the crayon box within reach, Nathan and Claire stayed in the kitchen. She washed the dishes. He stood by the window. "Starting Monday," he said, "we should talk about the actual terms going forward. If you want to bring Lily, she can come every day, not just in summer." Claire glanced at him over her shoulder. "Doesn't that contradict what you said at the interview?" The person at that interview was trying to protect himself. A beat. And now? He turned from the window to face her. No glasses, no cane nearby, nothing between them that wasn't real. "Now I'm trying to be honest, for the first time in longer than I'd like to admit." Claire turned off the faucet, dried her hands on the dish towel, and turned to face him. "Then be honest," she said, her voice low. "When did you know this wasn't about catching me anymore?" He looked at her. "The day I put the first drawing in my jacket pocket." She smiled. Small and real and not performed for anyone. Nathan took one step toward her, this time with nothing between them. This time, with the truth already out in the room where it belonged. Weeks later, Nathan opened the desk drawer. 23 drawings. He went through them slowly, one by one, in the late afternoon light, each one a record of something that had happened in this house when he hadn't known what was being built. The last one was different from all the others. A large sheet, bursting with color. 3 figures holding hands under a sun that Lily had pressed hard enough into the page to leave its impression on the next sheet down. And below them, in her best handwriting yet, "The game is over. Everybody won." He folded it carefully, placed it with the others, and walked out of the study toward the 2 people who, without trying to, and without any particular reason to, had repaired something in him he'd stopped believing could be fixed. His ability to trust, his reason to come home, his heart. If this story got to you, if Lily made you smile, if Claire made you hold your breath, if you understood Nathan, leave your rating in the comments. 0 to 10. How would you score this one? Your opinion is what lets us keep making stories like this for you every week. See you in the next one.